Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and so much has been going on. I haven't really been doing too many political readings in the past few videos. Well, I have, but as some of you may have figured out, they're the ones that are buried underneath, if you know what I'm saying. But this whole trip, to the UN and the speech and in case the rest of the world wasn't up to date, seeing his performance when someone on his team had a malfunction with the teleprompter, and it was his people who were responsible for his teleprompter, there isn't a UN person who's responsible for his teleprompter. And then he, it was allotted 15 minutes and he rambled on for an hour. Oh my gosh. Telling the other countries they're going to hell? Seriously? He ought to know because we're there. Oh, there's so much. There's so much to unpack. My goodness. Don't forget, in some of the bonus videos, I've been including the playlist for the rights that we have as citizens. And for those of you who are European and you're interested in them, I've been reading them. So what I'm doing now is just including the playlist. And I identify what it is in the bonus videos. I have multiple bonus videos. And so that if you're not interested in hearing the playlist, then I identify it so you don't have to watch that. Oh, one thing I want to mention also is in one of my recent videos, I think it was called The One That Got Away, where I told a personal story. And I was using the Alejandro Rozan, the writer, Marseille tarot deck. And one of the cards in the top row, now remember, when I do readings, I'm looking through the lens of a camera at an angle. But one of them was this card. And I identified it when I laid it down as 5. So anybody who was listening to me, to me do the read, saw that I identified this as a 5. And what I ended up doing was when I counted it up to do the quintessential card, which is part of my signature spread, which I developed, I added it as a 5 rather than a 7. And I got called out twice by people who said, well, that changed the quintessential card. It was like, yeah, it did. However, if you've been with me long enough, you know how I roll with that. However you perceive the card is the card. So I perceived this as I did the reading. Before the quint card was even involved, I perceived this as a 5. So I based it alongside the idea that maybe there was something that was stolen, okay? But I also identified it as a 5. And so when I did the quint card was part and parcel of what I perceived. So I know you guys want to some of you want to trip me up on my own my own spread, but it was a spread that I developed. But I've spoken about that multiple times, that because you've done it too. We've all done it. Let's be honest. I even bought Pinky to help me out with the addition. But sometimes, you see something and you see it, you perceive it differently. You don't perceive it for what it is. You perceive it. And the universe knows how I'm connected. The universe knows how I roll. So relax, okay? All right. I think I'm going to use the Alejandro Rozan tarot deck because I pulled it out. So I'm going to use it. It's a beautiful deck. I don't use it as much as I ought, so I'm going to use it today. Excuse me for being a little on the low key side. I don't feel well. I really don't. I have my lounge clothes on. My lounge around the house kind of clothes. I'm not feeling good. Another thing to talk about is that funeral service for CK several days ago. It was really not a funeral, It was 5 hours of political rally. Yeah, you know what? Begins with an N. And let's see. There's been whispering since the beginning that there's something, and I did a video on it called Something Fishy in Utah. If you can find that, I think it was probably a bonus read. If you can find that, probably you should watch it. But there's a lot of talk about maybe there having been an accomplice. Something was just not quite right. And I just thought maybe we'll do a signature spread once again. Now, I'll do a different read. I'm not redoing the same read. That read I did, I can't even remember what I did on, but I don't think it was about an accomplice or anything like that. This read will be, was there some kind of conspiracy or an accomplice? Or, you know, is there more to this redrum than meets the eye? You know, the Fat Boys Institute from the get-go, before they even knew who it was, you know, must have made, you know who feel confident, because he went off and said, oh, it's somebody from the left, it's somebody from the Democratic Party. And then the TRN, I think that was inscribed on the bullet, ended up, or not on the bullet, inscribed in the casing, I think, was something that was put there by the gun manufacturer. So it had nothing to do with trans, but they in their mind said, oh, it's trans, you know, that kind of thing. So they had created this whole thing before they had a single fact, blaming it on somebody it wasn't. Anyway, let's flip the camera. Let's lay these cards, and I'll go off. No, of course, I'll go off on my meditative place and, you know, ask the universe to help me out to decipher whether or not, or what are the likelihood, or what will come of this investigation. I don't think we can. Here's my bias. I don't think we can trust anything that comes out of the Fat Boy Institute. I don't think we can. I think anything that we learn that's factual will have to come from other sources. However, I still want to know if we'll discover or we'll learn any of if there was anything above and beyond the young man who has been apprehended and arrested, if there's anything or anyone above and beyond him that's part of this thing that went down. Alrighty. And if you've been here for 8 minutes, thank you so much. I think you might enjoy the bonus video that I'm including in this one, besides the Constitution playlist. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, we have King of Wands. Okay, we have an adult male in charge of what? He's looking out. The King of Fire. We have a broken heart. Remember, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith. You know, basically, the meanings, I think, for this deck are basically derived from the Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, the style maybe, you know, have some, you know, in things to do with the Marseille, but let's face it, the imagery, you know, that we get from this deck is more or less Rider-Waite-Smith meaning. So we have heartbreak. We have someone in charge who's looking away from the heartbreak, denying. There could be a denial of heartbreak, a denial. Let's see what comes next. Wow. So this card is remembering childhood or having sweet memories, recalling childhood memories. It could also just be seen as, you know, a younger brother giving his sister flowers, or an older child being kind to a younger child. But I think more or less this card has been associated with memories of childhood. Excuse me. So directly under the king, we have a youth, I think this is the 7 of coins. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, God forbid, I don't want to perceive it incorrectly. And sometimes it happens. Anyway, so, we have a youth, a young person who's done something and he's waiting to see how it works out. What becomes of it? Could be the young perp with whose initials are TR. Let's see. Front and center of the core 9, we have the Fool. Interesting. Reckless act, reckless behavior. Let's see what follows those two. And then we have the Victor's card, the 6 of batons. Someone who's being celebrated for having accomplished something. Interesting. Let me scooch those up. Okie doke. Ace of Swords. The High Priestess. Secret information, secret knowledge. That's very interesting. Okay, and then we have, 9 of coins. So something was put into action, a seed was planted, for example, and seeing, reaping your rewards. And this is a person who has reaped her rewards. This is the 9. So let me add up the quints. This is a spread that I've developed. It's my invention. If you use it, feel free, but please, do me the courtesy of saying that, identifying this as my spread. If it was in a book, you would, recognize that it was my spread. Alrighty, so I'll go off, calculate, I'll be right back. Alrighty, so here we have the quint cards. Now remember, with the Rider-Waite-Smith, with this particular deck, they recognize or they honor the 11 as being justice, as it would be in Rider-Waite-Smith, and not the traditional pip style cards. This is very interesting. Here we have somebody who's put something out, right? Careless behavior, action, a certain amount of success. Then there's the end of something, which could be the individual. And then we have justice. So this row kind of suggests that the person who did it is the one that's been arrested. Now, we can probably trust that because it wasn't the Fat Boys Institute that put it all together. It was the kid's father or a friend of the family or something like that. The kid told the father, and then the father told somebody. And then that person, together with the 3 of them, made the phone call. So it seems clear that, the youth had an idea, and he acted on it. And he, for a minute, thought he was successful because he accomplished what he intended to do, which was bring, the redrum of somebody, and he'll be brought to justice. So I can look at this and answer the question. The right person was taken in. Okay, but now there's the other question. Well, was there somebody else involved? Were there other people who may have been in on it or aware of it? Now, this row suggests that there could be some mild suspicions on somebody's part. An act was taken, a course of action was taken. Some secret information. I had mentioned earlier that somebody put something out there and then achieved what he wanted to do. And then this falls directly under the death card, and it's a card of punishment. Now, granted, we can interpret this card because these cards are Rider-Waite-Smith and Marseille influenced. I'm legit in saying that I'm going to see this as a punishment card rather than as like the sacrifice of Christ or whatever. Because it falls directly under the death card, and it's his actions had a consequence, right? Now, is it possible that somebody else was aware of what was going on? I do think that's possible. It looks as though there might have been some secret knowledge. Someone might have been aware. The person he acted alone. I don't think there was a friend that did it with him or anything like that. But there might have been somebody who was kind of suspicious, or maybe before he was actually arrested, there may have been people or somebody who, I wonder if it could have been you-know-who, the kid, TR, I didn't mean you-know-who as in the sense of you-know-who. I meant TR. That's who I meant. Now let's take a look at this top row. An adult looking away from heartache, childhood memories, and wisdom. Okay, well, I think this is just the father. The father, remembering the kid as a young kid, and just can't believe this grief. And, in his wisdom, he told a friend who I guess he realized the friend would turn them in. Or in his wisdom, he decided that we have to shed a light on this, So I think this row just answers the father. If we look at the father is disassociating himself with the heartache caused by, his child. And in his wisdom, the way he was turning away, is disassociating himself from the act. He also, felt the need to turn him in. So I don't know. I think the correct person has been arrested, will be brought to consequence, and it's possible that somebody else suspected, maybe not, wasn't involved, but may have been kind of suspected that maybe this individual had something to do with it. But that, the correct person has been punished. It's the kind of thing is like for those of you who follow true crime, remember in Idaho when BK was, after that horrendous crime in Idaho, in Moscow, I bet you there was a handful of people who suspected the person, 163214, that's his prisoner number. I think there were probably people who definitely thought in their heads, I wonder if it could have been him. And I bet you there were people who thought that immediately after it happened. And in fact, they may be the people who brought it to the attention of law enforcement. Well, I think it might be the same thing here. There might have been some people who, after the act, kind of suspected, and I'm not sure exactly how we can reconcile this card of having it. Well, I guess I can, because I think after the act, there was maybe someone, or maybe a couple people, or someone, at least one person, who suspected that it could have been him, because at some point, maybe, he planted the seed in their minds, due to reckless talking or whatever, and they thought that maybe he manifested, or that he did this, and that he's being punished for it. So I think there might have been somebody who not was in on it, but at least somebody maybe was suspicious or aware that something was going down or did go down. Not that they were part of it, but that's interesting. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be brave, and be kind. Until next time, all that. Bye.